deal with this question. It's a great question. How do we deal with scientists who keep exploring the universe, trying to prove the Big Bang Theory? In 2 words, keep exploring. I say that because the evidence that scientists are looking at, the more they're diving into creation and the universe, the more it points to the idea of some sort of supreme intelligence behind the universe. What we don't realize is that the myth that faith and the idea that faith and science are incompatible is a myth. It's a myth put forward often by atheists. And if we go back into history and look, the scientific method derived from the Christian monastic movement. Because the idea that there's a creator behind the universe means that if we begin to examine the universe, we're going to see signs that there's creation, that there's order. And so Christian monastics began to look at around them at nature and see evidence for the creator. There's a great book called God's Philosophers. It's not written by a Christian, but it talks about how the scientific worldview came from the Christian monastic movement. My second thing I would add is that as scientists began to look at the universe and they looked at the evidence that they began to find, it began to point to a beginning. And the problem with that view was that view supports the Christian worldview. And so as they sort of began to look at the evidence for the Big Bang Theory, they go, wait a second here. We have to be very careful because the evidence is pointing to the worldview that supports Christianity. So what do we do? And they began to suppress it. They became very reluctant to actually acknowledge that the universe has a beginning. And so I would just say let scientists continue to explore the world around. Let them continue to bring forward evidence, because the evidence that they brought forward so far has supported the Christian worldview, not neglected it.
Yeah, and I would just add to that real quick that if you look into history, the polemic between science and faith is a modern creation. It's really not until in Western culture until about the 1800s where that faith versus science really comes to the forefront. There's always hints of it, but I read an article just a handful of weeks ago about the 2 voices who basically painted this picture to say that has to be one or the other. They can't come together. If you look at the history of the world, like this long, it's about this much time where that's been a significant battle. And as Will said, you have people throughout the history of the world who are people of deep faith who also are committed scientists.